Hello and welcome to my channel. I am in the middle of figuring this whole thing out. Django is not loving any of this, so I'm just going to throw you guys over to the screen so that I can show you what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so we just moved in our new house and I'm trying to set up my space. So in the meantime, here we go. If you do not know about Orilium and what all of that means, I will definitely leave G's channel linked down below. You should go check it out, especially if you like long-running challenges in reading in some kind of way. So I have had a lot of fun. I have two characters. Their names are Emmeline and Adrian. And these are their pictures or courses that we took in the spring. So as you can see, Emmeline is a moon warden. That is her calling. And so those are the studies that she had to do in the spring. And we did that. That's one book per class. And the same thing for Adrian, except she is a God-seer. And she had one book for each class. So hers is a more specialized calling. And so I'm going to tell you about the callings and then I will explain what we're reading for our autumnal equinox classes for the fall. Okay, so as you can see, we're first just going to stick with Emmeline until we get her fall stuff done and then we'll switch over to Adrian. So for Moon Warden, the phases and alignments of the moons have a profound effect on the magic of Aeldia. Before the Amalur hit Aeldia, fractured pieces of it got embedded in the moons, infusing them with unique powers. This energy continues to be highly coveted. The lunar towers are powerful structures built to harness, store, and stabilize the power of the moons, as well as host the only portals to the mage bases on the moons. Naturally, these towers are a target for those wishing to gain quick power or disrupt the balance they provide. As such, they need constant protection. The Moon Wardens monitor for signs that an attack is imminent or that someone is attempting to manipulate the moons. When such intel is found, a Moon Warden is dispatched to deal with the issue. While the lunar towers have been enhanced by abjurers, they do not stay for long. Being so close to lunar energy seems to alter a person's physiology, so only those who are dedicated to protecting the moons are permanent residents. Moon Wardens can be recognized by the silver tint to their eyes and the radiant aura that surrounds them when they use magic. Their study of the moons has also granted them abilities found nowhere else. They can manipulate gravity and density. Those seeking to break into a lunar tower may find that they become weightless, floating in the air, or that suddenly even taking a single step requires all of their effort. Meanwhile, Moon Wardens can jump over buildings with a single leap or send their opponents flying with a single strike. Moon Wardens are essential to keep the chaos at bay and guarding the balance at Aeldia. So, in the spring, these are the classes that Emmeline took. And now in the autumn equinox, these are the classes. Now she needs an O, a Q, and an O. So those are the ones that she needs. O means she needs to read one book for that class. That's the level O. If she's going to do a level Q, she needs to read 2 books. And technically there is a level D, which is 3 books, but she does not have any of those. So altogether, she has 1 book here and then 2 in each of these and 1 book here. So that's 6 books that she has to read. So she has to do an O in elemental studies. Let me make this bigger. So we go down here, elemental studies. O is charm is a short trip. So read a manga, comic, or graphic novel. Then she needs a Q in astronomy. That means she has to do the O and the Q. So for the O, she needs a word in the title from the name of the last song you listened to, and then read from a finished series. For restoration, we also have an O. So that is induce sleep, start a book before bed, and relocating pain. Read a book in a different spot each time you pick it up. And then finally, her last one is spells and incantations. And she just needs an O, which is, okay, sorry, I guess you noticed that I read the spells and incantations first. And my elemental studies book that I was supposed to look at is the book with the word earth in the title. So here is her new syllabus that I have come up with for this semester. So her O, elemental studies, which is Earth in the title. We have this book called Earth Divers. Then her 2 in astronomy, which is a book from a song. The last song that I listened to was from the Hamilton soundtrack called The World Turned Upside Down. So this is When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Nevo. This is for that one. And then a book in a completed series. I'm picking the very first Discworld book, The Color of Magic. Now for the restoration, one of them is to start a book at night, and the other one is to read a book in a different place every time you pick it up. Those books I'm going to let be mood reads for me. So they probably will end up being books on my 50 before 50 series list that I'm trying to get through, but I'm not going to pick them ahead of time. I'll put them in as I read them. I almost always start my books at night, so like any book can go in there, and then I'll just make sure I sit in a different place every time I sit down to read the book. For spells and incantations, it's a graphic novel, and I'm going to read Heartstopper. Okay, then we come to Adrian, and her calling is God-Seer. So it says, what God-Seer are capable of depends on the God they follow. They will receive minor boons related to their deity, but their true power comes from obtaining a shard of divinity. Only after proving themselves will a God-Seer be gifted with one. They must devote their life to their God, completing requests from them and influencing events how they see fit. As a result, a God-Seer often spends their time alone or moving from place to place without making deeper connections. It can be lonely, but you're never truly alone, and they will always find friends in those of their faith. Often, the power is received in small flashes, a single vision of the future, a certainty that a thing is true, a blast of radiant power, a wound healing instantly. These small miracles and surprises are largely responsible for the appeal to this lifestyle. You will not have a boring week. Unlike most other magic branches, your powers are not clearly defined, and there are no known limits to the possibilities. Once they are deemed worthy, the boons they receive are extraordinary. Each shard has a different ability. Foresight and vision of the future, omniscience, ability to know everything about the world and its history, omnipresence, to be everywhere and see everything, omnipotence, and the power to change the world to their will. There are even some God-Seers who are granted immortality, surviving the unsurvivable or living past the years assigned to them. Only the most dedicated gain access to such abilities, and rarely are they blessed with more than one at a time. So down here at the bottom, you can see this is exclusive to Archivist. So Adrian is in the Archivist group. I forgot what it's called. The Guild. She's in the Archivist Guild. So she is qualified to do this one. So she had 7 books that she had to read in the spring. So for the autumn equinox, she has to have an O in 2 classes and a Q in 2 classes, which is just like Emmeline did, but she has to have a D in a class. So she's going to have 3 extra books to read that Emmeline did not. So if we're looking over here, she's got to have an O in inscription. So when I go to inscription, it just says a book from your end of the year TBR. She just has to do 1. Then we have restoration. This is the only class that the 2 of them have that overlaps. So I will be starting a book before bed and reading another book in a different spot each time you pick it up. That will count for both of them. I am not going to do 4 different books for these 2 prompts. Whatever I do for Emmeline will also count for Adrian and vice versa. Then she has conjuration, and she's got to do Q. So read a court or royal book, and then a book inspired or set in a different country or culture than yours. Then for demonology, she just has to do O, and that is read a first book you see on Instagram, Goodreads, or other. And finally, she has lore, and she has to do D, so we're doing all of them. So I have to do O, which is Tale of the Guide, a bookseller's recommendation. Q is Cursed Cloaks, clothing on the cover. And then D, the Underworld 101, read a horror book. So you can see right here, here's her guild, the Archivist, and her calling is God-Seer. So she is doing Inscription. I have to read a book that's been on my TBR, and that is the In Death series, because I've had that on my TBR for a couple of years now. Then she has to do the restoration. That's these 2 that I'm going to mood read, just like Emmeline. And then conjuration is a royal book or inspired by the court, and this has Lady Georgiana that is related to royalty. And then a book set in a different country, which is the Macy Dobbs series, is set anywhere in Europe it can be. So that is set in a different country than mine. Then for demonology, it is the first book I see on Instagram or Goodreads. I went and looked on Instagram. My friend Leslie from the Nerdy Narrative just did a book review on this book, and that was the first thing that popped up. And I've read an Emily Henry in the past. It was okay. I didn't love it, but people are talking about this, so I'm going to try it again. And then finally for the last class, which is lore, and I have to do a bookseller's recommendation. So I got this off of a recommended shelf from the library. This is clothing on the cover. So this is another one from one of my 50 series I'm trying to read. And then a horror novel, which is also part of my 50 series. So I was able to work in a lot. Out of all of the books that I'm reading for Adrian, only these two were not part of my 50 Before 50 series. And for Emmeline, only When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain is the only one that's not part of my 50 Before 50. So I think I was able to get a lot of books on this list that I want to read and I want to work my way through. So that is what is happening right now. I'm not going to go over the big list that I have for both of them and what they're doing over the whole year. There is a large check sheet for the whole year, but I will probably be checking in the fourth quarter of the year, sometime in those last 3 months, just to go over kind of where they are and what's going on with the two of them. I'm going to try to keep it a quarterly thing where we just check in and see what's happening, and hopefully G will provide another one of those year-long adventure things that they can do all year for next year as well, because this has been a lot of fun. So that is going to do it. I have got both the girls all set up and ready for August, and I'm excited to read all of these books that are on my lists. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you're doing the Orilium stuff and what your person's name is and what their calling is or anything like that. Let me know if we have any classes together. I think that'd be fun to see if we're reading any of the same things or what you're reading for yours. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.